Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next episode of Puppy Lunch and Learn. I am here today with Dr. Tasha Wilson of Acupetvet. How are you, Dr. Wilson?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, welcome, everybody. We are broadcasting in several groups today. Just want to give a shout out to the Dog Walking Club, Mary's Dogs, who is our charitable partner for this month. I also want to give a shout out to the It Takes a Village pet care page, as well as the Facebook group, My Pet's Best Life. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tracy Bisson. I am the owner and founder of It Takes a Village Pet Care. And the Dog Walking Club is a community outreach program of that company. And we have featured experts each month, of which Dr. Wilson is our featured expert for June. And we also create awareness and raise funds for charities each month. And as I mentioned, this month's charity is Mary's Dogs. So welcome and glad everyone can join us. So today we're going to be learning about puppy nutrition. And I love this topic because there are a lot of people adopting puppies right now and a lot of questions being asked in the group about puppy nutrition and introducing puppies properly to stimuli and the environment. And so it's just such a timely topic. So I want to give everybody a sense of what we're going to be talking about today before Dr. Wilson jumps into it. So the key topics we will be going over are how to read labels and choose the best type of food for puppies' growing needs, why certain brands are considered better than others, specific nutritional requirements for puppies, and what online resources like Dr. Google are credible sources of information. And I find that very interesting. I didn't even know Dr. Google existed.
Oh, well, I call it Dr. Google because a lot of times we'll go online to look up things, specific medically related. But maybe Dr. Google does exist. I don't know. I always heard that term before. That's why I threw that in.
Well, I looked it up after you told me about it, and it does. Google has this whole medical section. I'm like, wow, who knew?
Yeah, I actually didn't know that.
Well, Dr. Wilson, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Acupetvet before we get into the presentation?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. I love nutrition. I've been a veterinarian since 2000, goodness, about 15 years now. And when I started private practice, I loved nutrition so much, I started doing nutrition consults. And especially when puppies came in, I really wanted to go over nutrition with people. I started actually going to conferences specifically on nutrition. And then 4 years ago, I started Acupetvet, and I was certified in acupuncture, but I also did nutrition consults in that business. And so I've continued to do that. Acupetvet has continued to grown, and I thank you, my wonderful clients that have helped that happen. We celebrate our 4th year this month. And we do acupuncture, rehab therapy, and I still talk about nutrition because it is my favorite topic.
Perfect. Well, congratulations on your anniversary. 4 years is no small feat. So good. So before we get into the presentation, I just want to let everybody know, if you have questions, feel free to just chat them below where we are streaming live. And if you're catching this on the replay, still go ahead and leave your questions because we are monitoring these streams, and Dr. Wilson will get back to you on any questions you have after the live broadcast. All right, great. So I am going to put your presentation here into the stream, Dr. Wilson.
Okay, great.
Move some of the things here so everybody can see it. All right, great. We're ready to go.
All right. So we're going to talk about puppy nutrition. As you see in this picture, we don't want to forget cats. So I will talk a little bit about cats at the end. Generally speaking, when we talk about pet food labels or food in general, this does apply to dogs and cats. So we don't want to forget the feline creatures out there too. So there is so much to look at when we're looking at a bag of food. I'd love for you guys to throw out comments too periodically throughout this, because I think with me, especially when I go to a grocery store or even go to look for different types of supplements for myself, there are certain bags or boxes or bottles that catch my attention based on, sometimes it's the color, sometimes it's the font, and really that's not the most important information. I will tell you that when you go to a pet store, which all of you know, there's a lot of glitz and glitter on those bags, and the ones that are maybe the gold ones or the silver definitely get our attention, and it makes it look like it's a high quality food inside, but it's not necessarily the case. So the one thing I think is really important when you look at a bag of food is you want to take a look at something called the AFCO statement. Now, this sometimes is hidden on your bag. So basically, you want to try to find out where the ingredients are. Sometimes that's in the back of the bag, but sometimes it's also on the side of the bag. And you see the ingredients, the guaranteed analysis, and something called the AFCO statement. So I'm actually going to go through everything on this slide one by one, just to kind of give you a little bit more information about it. So first you have the ingredients, which are important. And I want you to pay close attention to chicken as the first ingredient there, because I'm going to touch upon that in just a moment. But the one thing I want you to know is that a lot of times we look at ingredients and we see things that we might not be familiar with. A lot of times the pet food company has veterinarian nutritionists on staff that will look at certain ingredients and find out what nutrients are in those ingredients. And so sometimes we don't understand what these are, but it's because they add value to the nutrient components to the food. So basically what I'm trying to say is sometimes if we don't recognize it or we don't think that doesn't look right, there might be some value in that ingredient that we just don't know about. So that's really important. And then you see underneath there is the guaranteed analysis. That is really important too. You can see there's minimums and maximums there. Pet food companies should have the exact amount available for you. So you would want to call potentially a company and say, you know what, I need to know how much protein is in this dog food because maybe my dog can't have too much protein. Can you give me that value? Because all you're telling me here is that it's 21.5%, at least 21.5% protein. And they should be able to give that to you. So that's really important. One thing I look at, and we'll touch upon this more with slides too, is you want to make sure the pet food company can give you that information. Because if they can't, then potentially each bag might not be the same. So sometimes you'll pick up, let's say, I'm going to say brand A, and the protein level maybe is 30%. And then another time you pick it up and it's going to have 25%. Well, it still can be okay because the minimum range is 21.5. So they should have the exact number so you know every bag's the same. The other thing about this is when pet food companies only look at the guarantee analysis, so they actually put together a formula, they do a recipe, they put it through a machine, and they say, okay, this food's okay because the protein level fits where it needs to. It's at least 21.5%. You want more than that from a pet food company. So the AFCO statement actually tells you if the pet food company has done that or not. So when you look at the AFCO statement at the bottom, it says animal feeding tests using AFCO procedures substantiate that Science Diet, this is a Science Diet food, adult advanced fitness original dog food, wow, that's the name, provides complete and balanced nutrition for maintenance of adult dogs. So that's a huge statement, and that's actually one sentence. It sounds way too long to be one sentence. So I'm going to break it up for you. So the beginning says animal feeding test. So that means that they did this guaranteed analysis, put it through the computer, got specific information. I will tell you Science Diet, if you call them, they will give you the exact number that's in the food. And not only did they do that, but they actually fed animals this food for a while and watched them and made sure that they didn't get too obese. They didn't stay too thin. They actually did blood work periodically, check to make sure blood work values are okay. That actually, I don't know if that rings a bell for you at all, but years ago, I think it was in 2007, there was a melamine scare. Tracy, do you remember that?
A what scare?
It was called melamine. So a lot of food companies, I will say a majority of food bags were recalled because a substance was actually found in it, and it was called melamine. And it caused kidney disease in pets. And that was 2007. I don't know if our listeners, watchers or viewers, I should say, remember that. But food was, I will tell you, majority of food was recalled. I mean, I worked at a veterinary clinic, and we probably had only a few bags that we could actually continue to sell. And that was because in China, unfortunately, they had substituted gluten with melamine. And when they did what we call the guaranteed analysis, and when they threw everything in the computer, everything looked okay. The reason they caught it is because companies were doing animal feeding tests. And when companies did these animal feeding tests, they did blood work and they saw kidney values getting high. That's how they caught it. So when we think about animal feeding tests, a lot of times we think about, oh, they got a lab, and that's not necessarily the case. I will say it depends on the company and make sure they're doing it right, but most of the reputable companies who did feeding tests, a lot of them don't call it that anymore, but they actually have animals on site, and these animals pretty much live with the staff. I mean, they come in the conference room with them. They have a dog park for them. It actually is a really good setup. In fact, they probably get more loving than my dogs do based on the setups they have. But they watch the animals during when they feed this new food to them and make sure that they stay healthy. So animal feeding tests are really important, and you want to make sure that the companies are doing something similar to that. Animal feeding tests did get a bad name. PETA was very concerned about animal feeding tests, and they were concerned that there was more like a laboratory setting. So a lot of companies don't necessarily call it animal feeding test anymore, but they still do the research. So that's really important, that you want to know if they do the research or not, if it doesn't say the animal feeding test in the AAFCO statement. So that's one part of that AAFCO statement. The other part you want to look at is the type of food it is and what it provides. So as you continue looking, you're going to see it provides complete and balanced nutrition for maintenance of adult dogs. So for puppies, you want that to say puppies. For adult dogs, you want that to say adult dogs. You do not want all life stages. All life stages means that the food you're giving to your dog is good for puppies and adults because they need the same requirements, which is not true. There are a lot of pet food companies out there that do all life stages, and it's very convenient for owners. I mean, I know for myself, if I had a puppy and several older dogs at home, it would be great just to give one type of food. In fact, my 2 dogs are adult dogs, and I have to give them both different kinds of foods. And it's a pain. It's not easy, and you got to make sure they don't go over to that food dish, and it's not a lot of fun. But it's really important that the puppies do get puppy food, and kittens get kitten food. Even orthopedic specialists have a lot of concerns about all life stages because you want to make sure the ingredients that are in that food, the nutrients are in that food, are specifically for puppies while they grow. So that's a lot in that statement. And I hope all of you guys, if you guys have bags of food, take a moment, even after this talk, and look. If you can't find it, send me a message on this thread, and I can kind of help you go through it with you.
Wonderful.
So we did talk about AAFCO, and I just want to give you an idea what AAFCO is. AAFCO actually started for large animal industry. They wanted to make sure the food that the large animals were getting was good, and it was appropriate and safe, especially for us. If you're not vegetarians or eating meat, you want to make sure that the animals are getting what they should be getting. But there was no regulations for small animals. So AAFCO decided to expand it a little bit more and look at small animal foods. And as you see here, their main thing they do is develop and implement uniform standards, definitions, and enforcement policies. I will tell you, they're not much. It's not a huge regulatory committee, so they don't do a lot for small animal food. In fact, anybody could sell a brand on the shelf without doing too much. But the one thing that I think is really important is the definition part. So everything on the label should have a definition. And they actually have a book and an online website you can go to. And years ago, the online website did not have the definitions on there. They're slowly putting some definitions out there, but you can buy a book. The book's unfortunately expensive. I actually did get a book years ago. So I do have one. So if someone had a question about something in the ingredients, definitely let me know. But each ingredient has a definition. Byproducts, holistic. Holistic, by the way, does not mean anything. So I'm going to throw that out there. So if holistic and natural on a bag is just to get our attention, it is a marketing gimmick. So you definitely want to take a look at the ingredients or call the company and say, what do you mean by holistic? And I've definitely done that before.
Dr. Wilson, are you going to be touching upon the grain-free diet at all? There's a question about it, but I didn't want to bring it up unless you're going to cover it later.
You know, I actually don't have a lot on the grain-free specifically, so you can go ahead and
all right,
shoot
let me
up a
pop it
question.
up. So there's a question here from Kim. She says, we have our 5 and 9-year-old pups on a grain-free diet. I'm hearing pros and cons. Would love any feedback on this.
Absolutely. A great question. So a lot of people had thought that grain diets can cause allergies. And I will tell you, and we actually have a slide on allergies later on, that's not necessarily the first ingredient that actually causes issues. So I do not recommend putting pets on grain-free foods unless we start seeing an issue. Having said that, it started probably about a year ago. The University of California and Tufts started seeing cases of dogs with heart issues. Breeds of dogs that we generally do not see heart issues in, and it seemed to be related to the type of food. The type of food, if the food was changed, they saw a difference in the heart condition. And the type of food the animal was on were grain-free diets. Now, having said that, these grain-free diets tend to be more exotic. So, Kim, I don't know if your food also is liver-based or kangaroo. A lot of them are. A lot of them have a lot of legumes in it. And so we don't know 100% what component of the diet is causing the issue, but it seems to be related to the grain-free diets, which I would highly recommend looking into that a little bit more. You can actually check out my website. I have a blog on it, and it specifically will give you links, so you can look at the research out there too. But right at this moment, until we know more, I tell people if they're on grain-free diets to switch over to something else. Because unfortunately, there is some concern that heart disease can be formed from this grain-free diet and actually be quite serious and sometimes fatal if it continues to go through that process. And if you have any questions about your dog's heart health, don't hesitate to reach out to your veterinarian. A lot of times they're actually doing ultrasounds of the heart to making sure everything looks okay.
Perfect. I'm glad Kim brought up that question. Thank you, Kim, because that is such an important topic that I know you and I had an in-depth discussion about last year. Hence the reason you wrote that blog post, so that I could share it with my readers on our blog, because the question was being asked so much from our clients. So I'm glad that she brought it up. Obviously, it's still a very important topic to pet owners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I really am thankful you brought that up, because I did not touch upon that specifically. So thank you. So I put this slide up because one thing I always look at is, what does the board certified nutritionist say when we are looking for pet food? What is the most important? Like I said before earlier, as I went to many different conferences, I actually sat down with a board certified veterinary nutritionist. It wasn't actually Dr. Freeman, it was a different one. But I would ask those questions because I wanted to learn more as well to help you guys. Even as veterinarians, we don't get a lot of information with small animal nutrition in school, and I'm hoping that's changing now since I've been there. But one thing they talk about, and she talks about here, is again the feeding trials. Really, really important. And if you don't see things like feeding trials on the bag, then you want to reach out to the company and say, okay, what do you do to make sure that this food is safe? What do you do as a substitute potentially for feeding trials? Royal Canin, for example, is a very reputable dog food brand. It doesn't say feeding trials in the back of the bag. They actually do more than what feeding trials do. Feeding trials will take a look at a small amount of dogs, a small subset, and look at them for about, I think it's at least 6 months. Actually, it says it right there on that slide, at least 6 months. Whereas Royal Canin does more than 6 months, and they look at more than just blood work and weight. So they actually do a lot more than what typical feeding trials do. So rural canin is a food that I do recommend because they do all that research. Oh, and by the way, before I leave that slide, Tufts has a great site for nutrition for dogs and cats. And you can go there and see frequently asked questions and answers. And they'll go over a lot of questions that us as owners have about pet food. So a great site for you guys to look at. The other thing that is important in the bag of food is the manufacturer. There are many brands of foods out there that are under a certain name, but that company doesn't actually make the food. They actually formulate the food, they make the recipe for the food, and they send it somewhere else to get made. And when that happens, there's more risk for recalls because they're not really paying attention to the ingredients that get in the bag, where it comes from, if there's contamination. So the manufacturer is really important. And sometimes you can't find it on the bag and you want to ask the question, do you actually make this diet yourself? For example, in 2012, there was a huge Diamond pet food recall. And a lot of people, I wouldn't say no one, a lot of people didn't know if their food was recalled because their food didn't say Diamond pet food on it. It said Taste of the Wild, it said Canaday, it said Natural Balance. So it's really important. You want to know who's actually making your food because if there's a pet food recall, you're only going to hear Diamond pet food recall on the news, and you're not going to know that your food's infected.
Boy, that's such important information. I would have had no idea.
And honestly, there are a lot of brands on this food. I did not know Diamond pet food made either. So actually, I had to go online and start taking a look. Like, what does that mean? Because I know Diamond pet food did make other types of food, and I didn't know it had that huge list.
Wow, I'm so thankful people like you are on top of this for us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I mean, it's so important, to know what our pet's eating. And I have animals, and like I said, we didn't learn this stuff in veterinary school. So I would go to the store and I'd be like, what do I feed my pet? There are certain brands that I knew did some research, but there are so many new brands out there, and you're like, well, that looks like a good brand. And so I had to go out and beyond and do more, get more information. And it was really hard too, because you guys would come into the office and be like, well, I'm giving my pet this, and there's a brand I wasn't familiar with. So how do I know if this new brand is doing what it should do? And this site is where I want you to go. WSAVA.org is basic. It's World Small Animal Veterinary Association. They have all these guidelines, and they have one for nutrition guidelines. There's some information there too about the grain-free diets as well. But they have something specifically for pet owners on here. And they have different handouts. One of them is called the Savvy Pet Owner's Guide to Nutrition. Because we look online for things. Heck, I do. I'm sure my doctor hates it because I know stuff about veterinary medicine. It is different. People in veterinary medicine, and I start Googling, and I get to the doctor's office, and I say something, and I sometimes wish I didn't based on the look they give me. So I know that we go online. I do it too. So it's really important to know where your resource is coming from. And they have great information on there and what to look for when you do Google what's the best type of food for my pet. The couple things I always tell people is always, whatever you find online, do talk to your veterinarian about it. There are many veterinarians out there that do know they're starting to learn more about nutrition and go out and learn more like us. In fact, the conferences now are specifically having seminars on nutrition. So really important to talk to them. The one thing you can see, though, when you look online, find out who the site's author is. I have seen some that have said it's an engineer. I have seen some that said they are a cat lover, which is great, but they need to have some sort of education to support why they're saying this food is best. That's really important. And I look for a site that actually says board certified veterinary nutritionist, or showing they have a PhD in animal nutrition. Really important. If they say they are a pet nutritionist or a certified nutritionist, there actually is no standard for training in this. So if you see that, they might have just done something online, took a quick quiz, and now have the credentials for being a pet nutritionist. So that's really important.
Well, Dr. Wilson, I don't know if you mentioned this already, but do you advise people to make sure their pet food is manufactured in the USA?
That's a great question. Yes.
Okay.
Now, Royal Canin does have some facilities outside in Europe, but it really depends on where they're coming from. I would not do China. I would not do Thailand. I would definitely be cautious of where you get the food. And treats especially, which is, I will tell you, it's really hard to find treats, and I'm sure you've all looked. They all come from a different country. So if you can find a treat that is from the United States, that's a lot better. A lot of the pet food companies, too, are now only sourcing their ingredients from the United States. So that's also a question you can ask the company, because you want to make sure the ingredients are actually from the United States, too, and not getting from China, which I will tell you, after the melamine thing that happened in 2007, many food companies are no longer getting anything from China.
We have a few questions if you want to take a pause here.
Sure.
All right, so here's a comment from Brenda. She said she took her dog off of Taste of the Wild. She actually, in a subsequent chat, she said a few months ago, and said he is doing well on Purina 1.
That's it. Purina 1 is a good type of food. So Taste of the Wild sometimes can have higher protein and higher calories. And again, you want to look at the manufacturer and see who makes that food. And you also want to look to see if they have a full-time qualified nutritionist. Actually, this actually goes to my next slide here. So Purina 1 has more research done with the food than Taste of the Wild. Taste of the Wild, you look at it, it's very becoming. It looks like it'd be good for your pet, but there's not a lot of research that goes into that food. So until I start seeing that they have a PhD nutritionist who makes the food, and I can get the actual amount of proteins in each bag, I don't recommend Taste of the Wild. Purina 1, I do recommend. And Purina Pro Plan actually is a little higher quality than Purina 1. So that's another one you can look at as well.
All right, great advice. Here's another question from Deborah Rogers. She says, what is your opinion of wellness brand for large breed? We fed our beloved Sophia from her rescue in May of 2004 at approximate age of 10 months until her passing in August of 2018. Newfoundland and possible lab mix.
So what you want to know is, when they say it's a large breed food, why do they say that? What changes did they make in that food to make it a large breed food? Again, you can put things on the label and not have the research to go with it. Just like I said with holistic, you can say holistic and not necessarily mean holistic. I've actually called a company once to see if it was an indoor formula, because it said for indoor cats. And when I asked them what that meant, they said it's because they made the kibble certain colors to look like they were outside, like grass and flowers and things like that. So yeah, you have to ask the questions. And so that's one question I would ask the company. And you can go right online. They have a contact form, and you can go ahead and ask the company these questions. So wellness, and I haven't touched base with them recently, but when I did a few years ago, they did not have a animal nutritionist on staff. So it wasn't a food I necessarily recommended. And I didn't think they didn't do feeding trials at the time either. And they didn't make their own food either. So that would be something. What I would do is I would take a look at this WSAVA guideline. These are recommendations on selecting pet foods. You can get it right on their site. And I would go through these questions, pick a few. You don't have to pick all of them if you don't want to. Pick a few and see what their response is. This is the response I would get from Hills if I sent this to Hills. And they actually have this response. A lot of pet food companies are now putting their responses on their website because I know people are now looking for that. So that's really important. And like I said, these questions are right on this website. When I do a nutrition consult for people, I will, if it's a company that I haven't checked in for a while or a newer brand of food, these are the questions that I email them, and I want them to be able to answer it. There's been pet food companies that do not provide me the answer and tell me they're going to look into it. A year later, I do it again. They say they'll look into it. So when I get those type of answers, I do not feed my pet those diets, and I do not recommend those diets.
Well, that's awesome that you're such an advocate for this, making the manufacturers, respond to consumer questions and give us the, correct information that we need. I had no idea there's so much depth and details into all of this. So I'm so glad we're talking about this topic.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you had me talk about it today, because I agree, it's something we don't know about. I will when I go to conferences, they have exhibit halls and they have pet food companies out there, and I'll go to them and I'll say, why do you think it's a good idea to have this dog on a very high protein diet? And they'll respond and they said, because it's better for them. And I said, well, actually, working dogs, for example, high agility dogs, you don't want higher protein. You want actually higher fat and carbohydrates, depending on the sport they're doing. And then when I bring that up to them, this particular gentleman said to me, well, it's what the owners are looking for. Well, that's not what we want. We don't want pet food companies to make food based on what we think might be most important. We want them to share with us the research they found to make sure our pets are healthy.
Yeah.
So that shocked me.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
you have to ask the questions, and it's good to know what questions to ask.
Yep.
And so I honestly, when I saw WSAVA have this list, it blew me away, because these questions are ones I wouldn't have thought about on my own. And it makes them tell you, okay, what's in this food? How do I make sure that it's good quality control? Again, you want to make sure they manufacture it, and that they're not just sending it somewhere else to get done.
All right. Well, we've got quite a few more questions here. We'll get to everybody's questions before we get off. So do you have a hard stop today, Dr. Wilson?
No, I'm good. We can go for hours on this topic. I love this
Well,
topic.
obviously, we've got some great questions. I thank everybody for their questions. Let's pop up a few more here. So Bonnie's curious, do you have to be a member of WSAVA, the site?
No, you don't. It's just anybody can access it. That's a wonderful question, and there's lots of different topics on there. So nutrition's not the only one. Yep,
Okay.
anybody can access it. And same thing with AFCO. You can definitely go online and access AFCO. The only thing, like I said, is that if you want to know certain definitions, you might have to buy the book. But I have the book, so feel free to throw some questions out, and I can help you with that. I don't have it on me right now, though, so I have to get back to you on it if you send them on it.
All right, here is a longer question from Justine. She says, my Bernedoodle is sensitive to all grains, legumes, and starchy grains, as well as most animal proteins. We've found a brand that is as clean as we can find that only contains salmon and a few other lesser offensive starchy veggies like peas. But he's still incredibly itchy and chews his feet and scratches his ears, indicating he's still having inflammation. Anything other than Benadryl or Apoquel I can give him to reduce itchiness?
Well, one thing I'd say regarding the food allergies that you talked about, I'd like to find out, one thing I'd ask you is, have you done how'd you find out that he was allergic to that? Because sometimes we've given an animal a food, let's say it's chicken-based or maybe has some grain in it, and they have a reaction to it, but we look at the ingredient list and we try to figure out what it is that's causing it, and it's really hard to know that. Most of the time, it actually is the protein and not the grain. So I would say definitely talk to your vet about it. Talk to them about maybe switching off to a different type of protein. Sometimes they can actually have just a slight intolerance to a food. So you can just change the protein and they do okay. So maybe salmon might not be the best. Maybe a different meat might be good. However, having said that, sometimes it can be allergies in general to a food. So you might need a prescription diet. So I'm going to stick to the nutrition aspect of things just real quick here, and then I'll talk about the medication. So if it is truly a food allergy, you definitely want to get a prescription diet, because there's sometimes some contamination with other types of ingredients in over-the-counter food. And there's nothing really wrong with that. What happens is they start making a chicken product, and then shortly after they make the chicken food, then they throw in the ingredients for the fish food. But when you do a prescription diet that's specifically for allergies, they actually clean the machine out in between the foods. So that way you don't have contamination. Now, some animals we think have food allergies, but maybe something else is going on. Now, this is actually a question I had posted earlier, and I'm actually going to be doing a talk on allergies next week. So definitely all you guys listening, you guys can join me. Tracy, you've got me really excited about Facebook Live, so I'm doing one myself next Friday. But the allergies, a lot of times it can be actually from fleas, and we don't necessarily see the flea. Now, I will say this, a lot of times dogs are more prone to allergies will have an allergy to a flea, so there might be a mixture of different allergies, but you want to make sure you have some flea prevention on hand. And then you also want to look at potential seasonal allergies, because a lot of dogs, like I said, if they have an allergy to food, they're going to potentially have allergy to other things, and usually it's a combination. Different type of medications are available for allergies. Apoquel, Benadryl, there's another one called hydroxyzine. I would definitely have to refer you to a veterinarian because I do not know your pet's medical history. So I would ask them what they think would be best for them. And there are some great supplements out there, and that's why I'm going to actually do a teaser. You gotta come watch it on Friday, next Friday, and you'll see some supplements that help out with allergies.
Now, a question I have for you, just because I saw a quick study this morning that I have not been able to dive into, but I saw some reference to Apoquel being the culprit of some types of cancer in animals. Have you heard anything about that?
So a client asked me about that a few weeks ago. I have not seen that. They did do some safety studies before they can actually sell that product, and there was no indication that it could cause that. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I have heard that. It's kind of like something that's anecdotal that I've been hearing a lot about, but I have not seen any specifics on there. The side effects that sometimes I see from Apoquel is decreased appetite, maybe a little bit of some GI upset, so some vomiting, diarrhea. It's rare. I have prescribed Apoquel in the past when I worked at a primary veterinary clinic, and honestly, I didn't see any of these side effects. Of course, my own dog had a sensitive issue with it, had a sensitive belly, so we did stop the Apoquel for him. But it's nothing I have seen that has really indicated cancer. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, but I'm definitely keeping an eye out for that.
Okay, good. And just one comment I wanted to make as well to Justine's comment about the itchiness and just allergies with dogs in general. One thing that people don't think of are the VOCs, or volatile organic compounds, in people's homes that also may be causing these reactions in their pets. And I just wanted to throw up a Facebook group here that I run where we are talking about these things. It's My Pet's Best Life. We're talking about the top 13 VOCs in everybody's homes and what the VOC is in, what products you have in your home that it is contained in, as well as what reactions your dog could potentially have. And we're offering pet safe alternatives. So if that's something you're interested in learning a little bit more about, you can join us in this free private Facebook group as well.
That's really interesting, Christy, because as you're talking, cats are extremely sensitive to things in the home. And a lot of cats can have asthmatic reactions to things we don't even know about. So I'm going to have to check out that little list you got there.
Good. All right, so we've got a few more questions here. Let's see. Ray is curious. He says, our dog food has oats, millet, and Milo, along with pork and chicken. Thoughts? The brand is Inception.
I am not familiar with that brand. That is a newer brand for me. So I would say I would go and actually do the contact form and put those questions on there and find out that information. If you wanted to, I can definitely give you specifics on those ingredients. I can definitely get back to you on that. But if we're looking at the brand in general, I'd have to contact the company and ask those questions. Like I said, that's easy. Like the contact forms it's great because it's so easy to contact them, and they usually get back to you within 24, 48 hours.
That's great. And I think, having pet owners be advocates for their own pets and really going down that rabbit hole is an important exercise for everybody to do.
Yeah, I think it's really good because I don't mind. Like I said, there are certain brands that I do recommend because I've done that research and I know. But I think it's really important that you feel comfortable too what you're feeding your pet.
All right. So Paul wants to know, what food do you recommend for pug puppies?
So I like Royal Canin. I mentioned that before, and I will tell you they have breed-specific foods. And I am one that asks the questions whenever different things come out, different brands like Inception. I'm going to have to look that one up now because that one I'm not familiar with. And when Royal came out with these breed-specific formulas, I wasn't number one. I didn't know much about Royal Canin. So I wasn't like a number one fan or anything like that. And I saw the breed specific foods and I thought, oh, this is a great marketing gimmick. Let's have a different food for each breed that was out there. Well, as I started getting more involved in nutrition, I started doing more research. I saw that Rural Canin has a board certified, a PhD animal nutritionist that formulates a diet. And the ingredients that they have, if you call them and ask them, they'll tell you what nutrient is involved in that ingredient. So I was starting to get pretty impressed, and they make their own food and all that. So when I saw the breed specific, I said, I need to find out more information. Actually, I met with one of the nutritionists that used to work at AFCO and now was at Rural Canin. And I asked him, I said, okay, so I'm not buying this breed specific thing. And he handled me quite well. And he said, well, let's talk about the German Shepherd diet. We have 10 to 15 years of research on German Shepherds, what they're predisposed to, and what we can do in a diet to prevent those things from happening. And I just, of course, wanted to put my foot in my mouth because obviously I did not have all the information, and I was amazed that they took the time to do that. Yeah. So the pug, I do actually have a book on the breed-specific diet, so I can quickly take a look afterwards. I'm going to make a note of that for you and tell you specifically what's in the pug diet over other ones. They don't have all the breeds because, like I said, they do the research first. So if their breed's not there, most likely it's because they don't have the research. But I believe the pug kibble is made in a certain way, so they're able to chew it better. So they do the kibble shape. They do textures a little bit different. And then again, they make stuff, they put stuff in it to help prevent things. So I will look into that for you so you have that information, but that's where I would recommend. I actually have most of my animals, like I said, I have 2 dogs and they get different foods. And one of them has 3 different foods mixed in because he's got so many issues going on. And so I have a mix. I use Science Diet a lot in Rural Canin as my 2. And I'm impressed, like I said, with the stuff that they do. So that would be the one. That would be what I would recommend. But like I said, I want you to take a look too. So I will give you my information that I have so you can make an educated decision about that.
Perfect. So Paul, that answer will be posted in the video in the Dog Walking Club in the timeline. So just make sure you're a member of the Dog Walking Club in order to get that information. And membership is free. The Facebook, or I should say the website information is scrolling below on the screen. And that will tell you about the Dog Walking Club, and it will give you a link to our Facebook group as well so that you can access all these video interviews with our experts and Dr. Wilson for June, and also get the answers to the questions. All right, so one last question it looks like at the moment, and then we can continue. So we've got Doreen wants to know, which dog food brands do you recommend? And I know you've touched on a few. Are there any others that you haven't mentioned?
No, I think the top 3 would be the Rural Canin Science Diet and Purina Pro Plan, Purina One. Purina does have a variety of different types of food, so it's really important because Purina does make Benefil too, and Benefil is not the best quality, and they don't have as much research as the other ones. So you want to do more Purina One, Purina Pro Plan if you're looking at the Purina line.
Okay, perfect. All right, so want to hop back into the...
Sure, yeah.
So I'm going to switch our view here.
Okay. Great. So I think all these questions have touched upon a lot of things that I'm going to be talking about. We're going to talk about a little bit about ingredients, protein, corn, byproducts, chicken, allergies. So I think it's great that you guys are asking so many questions. I love it. So I had mentioned before how chicken was listed in the ingredient list as the first ingredient. And I know that's what we all look for because in our mind, we know that the first ingredient means that has the most substance in the food. Well, pet food companies also know that we look for this. And so what they do is they actually weigh chicken. So they weigh the chicken without cooking it. And when they do that, it's actually a lot heavier because there's water in it. So if they weigh the chicken before they cook it, it's heavier, and hence it can become the first ingredient. Once they cook it, depending on how much water's in it, it can be potentially lower down the list. So I don't look at the first ingredient. I look at the first few ingredients, but I don't look at the first ingredient because sometimes it can be a marketing thing. So I think that's really important for you guys to know. That kind of blew me away. They're they can make food to help animals, but depending on what their primary reason is, or maybe secondary reason, they also want you to buy it. So they're going to do things potentially to make their food look better than others. So it's just important for you guys to know that. And just because if it does say chicken as a first ingredient, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad brand of food. It's just for you to be aware of that might not be better than another one if the chicken is 2 or 3 down the line. So I did have a question about byproducts and what exactly they were, because byproducts also can get a bad name. And I know this is something that, I get nervous about talking about. But when I look at the ASCO definition, I can see exactly what byproducts are. And it doesn't include fecal material. One person had told me they thought byproducts, which makes sense. So it could be fecal material. It does not contain that. It actually is products that we as human beings don't ingest most of the time, like liver. I know some people like liver. That's great. I don't. But most of the time, we look at the intestines, liver, kidney, which is some of the things that have great nutrients in it. So that's what they mean by byproducts. And of course, if it says poultry byproducts, it means it's come from chicken. Now, the one thing that is good to know is if an animal is coming from a USDA slaughter plant. And that all depends on the brand of food. And most brands out there, the more reputable, the ones I've mentioned, and probably I would say the ones that have been around for a while, probably are use USDA slaughter plants. So you want to make sure they're coming from a good slaughter plant so they don't have any contamination that we don't want. But that's what I want you to be aware of. There's a lot of nutrients to certain things, and that's what the byproducts are. So common byproducts. There are a lot of treats out there, like bully sticks, for instance. And on this slide, you'll see, I think it's called bonus bites. Those are actually trachea, and trachea has a lot of cartilage in it, which has a lot of glucosamine in it. So it helps out with joints. So that's something for you to be aware of. So a lot of times we'll look for treats for our pet, and those are byproducts. Soybeans are byproducts. Vitamin E, which is very nutritional, are byproducts. So when we think about byproducts, I want you to think about some of the other things that could be, besides just something that our pets shouldn't have.
Did you have a lot of people that got that answer right in that raffle you were running?
I think I only had 2 responses. I did not see any on your page. I was going to check that again when we're done here to see if anyone posted. But I think we have a couple good answers there. Yeah. Yeah, don't hesitate after this too. Check out my Facebook page because I am doing a raffle at the end of the month. And some of the things that I've talked about with you all this month are being raffled off, like Dasaquin Advanced and omega-3 fatty acid supplements, things like that. And actually, Woof Meow, just a side note, gave us a gift card too from them for the raffle. So I like to keep it local too, and so we had some fun stuff. So get in the raffle.
Excellent.
So the high protein diet is something that's out and about that people want for their pet. Too much protein can be a bad thing. So you want to make sure that you don't have too much protein in your diets. I am going to show you a slide at the end of this presentation that'll talk to you about what you want to look for your dog, your growing dog, to see what you need for protein level. But sometimes higher protein can cause loose stool, definitely can cause some GI upset, and it also can potentially affect the growth of your dog. So you definitely want to know the specific protein information, and don't necessarily get a food because it says high protein. In fact, I prefer not seeing that on bags of food because it gets me concerned just how high that protein could be. And here we go. So this, I guess we're coming up to the end of our presentation here. I didn't realize we had flown through here.
Yeah, we have about 10 more minutes.
Oh, goodness. Well, so this is information about puppies and what to look for. So this is all in kilograms. Unfortunately, it's not in pounds. You just take 25 kilograms times 2.2 and you get your pounds there. But it gives you percentage of the protein that you want, the fat percentage, DHA is a hormone that's great for growing puppies. That is really important because a lot of all life stage foods and sometimes the puppy formulas do not have DHA in it. And you definitely would want them to have DHA. And you can call them if it doesn't list it and ask them what they have. There was a research study done, it might have been 6 years ago, where they took all these brands of foods and found out that a lot of the puppy formula didn't have DHA. So really important. Talks about calcium, phosphorus, which is good to know for growth. And then it also talks about the calorie amounts. Be careful. I'm not too worried about puppies with calorie amounts, but just a side note, as they get older to adults, it's really important to have them on more of a moderate calorie amount, because a lot of the pet food companies are really high in calories. And that means potentially less cups of food per day to keep them at a good level for body condition, so they're not overweight. But depending on how much you decrease the cup of food, you also decrease the nutrients. So you want to make sure you're looking at moderate. And I particularly like between 300 and 400 calories a cup for adult dog food, depending on, of course, what they're doing for activity-wise. But that's generally what I look for. And of course, don't forget the cats. Now, if you want to see more information about nutrition, this is a great book. Anybody can buy it online on Amazon. Small Animal Clinical Nutrition. And I'll have all this information in there. And I'll also give you information about nutrition, what agility dogs might need, what a dog that maybe might be more couch dog. I was going to say lethargic, but not necessarily lethargic, but maybe not one that wants to go running all the time. I have one of those too. So definitely a good book to reference. So that's what I have on nutrition. I did want to talk about supplements real quick too before we end the talk. I want to check in to see if there's any questions about nutrition before I.
Yeah, we've got one from Cynthia here. She says, we've been trying to avoid chicken for our pup as her sire was chicken allergic. Should we be concerned that she has inherited that condition? She scratches a lot. And she's a golden, as Cynthia says. And she said, we just changed to earthborn salmon-based food.
Okay. Earthborn actually does more research in their food. So I was actually happy about that. I actually reached out to them a few months ago and asked those questions. And they do a lot of research on their food. Check to make sure it's not all life stages. I think a lot of their foods are all life stages. So you might want to look for a puppy formula. The chicken allergy is something being inheritable? Potentially. I would say salmon is a good route to take. But like I said, there might be, if it's a true allergy, there might be some contamination. Golden retrievers tend to have allergies and skin issues, and usually it's a mixture of seasonal and food allergies. So something to talk to your veterinarian about. There is a food that's out there that actually Rural Canin makes called Skin Support. Science Diet also makes one specifically for this to help the skin be healthier so they're not as sensitive to allergies. So if there is a mixture going on where you got food potential and skin issues related to seasonal stuff, you might want to look into that. You can also check out my talk next week because I'll talk about supplements that will help that too. But I wonder, based on what you're saying, and it could be a food issue, but it's not uncommon, unfortunately, for golden retrievers to just have allergies. So you might want to do something to help boost the immune system up and help protect that skin.
And she said she is using Puppy Stage. And one of the questions I had for you is, back when my dog was having allergies around her puppy stage, we were told to get a food that had avocado in it. Have you heard that before?
I haven't. The avocado, though, might be because avocado has been shown to help decrease inflammation, so that might be where that came from. I would actually recommend, and this will go to my next slide. I don't know if you have my slide up, Tracy.
Yep, let me.
It's an immune support supplement that I like for puppies, and that actually will help decrease inflammation too. So that might be something to think about doing. And did you have another question? Do you want me to touch base?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I think you answered her question. Thank you for your question, Cynthia.
So So as we're talking about puppy supplements, a lot of people ask me, should I put extra calcium in the diet? Should I do this? Should I do that? If you are on a well-balanced diet and you've gone over those questions that I gave you, and you feel good about the company and the way they answer it, and you feel like this is a good brand that has a lot of research to it, you do not need to add anything extra to your pet food. Now, if you have a puppy that might be showing some allergies, or sometimes we have something called puppy pyoderma, which is basically a skin rash in the belly. A lot of puppies get that. This will actually help boost their immune system. So when they're younger, their immune system is developing, so it's not like it would be when they hit 1 year old. And this is a great immune health support for dogs less than 6 months old, and they actually have an adult formula too that you can use as they get older. It has beta glucans in it, which is a great immune support. There's actually a lot of research showing that it helps boost the immune system. Emergency has one specifically that has beta glucans in it. When COVID came out, I started getting myself on it. And then they have one too that I think it's Airborne Plus that has beta glucans. So there is some research out there that says this is beneficial. And Nutrimax that makes this product has some research to back it up as well. They also have some marine lipids in there for omega-3 source, and a mixture of vitamins and minerals just to help boost the immune system. So that's a great supplement. So if anyone wants to have their animal, a puppy, on a supplement just for overall health and immune support, this would be one I would recommend.
And do you sell that through your store?
I do have that. In fact, actually, now you brought that up, I actually have one I'd love to raffle off today. So I'd love to know if we could look at everybody who's been watching right at this moment until we're done today, because I know you're going to have reruns. But basically, the people that are here today, I would love to have their names raffled, throw in the raffle box, and we can pick one, and somebody can get a free puppy supplement today.
Okay, so what I'll do after we're done broadcasting live, I will go to my random name picker, and we can shout out the winner in the Dog Walking Club feed on this event.
Wonderful, and then I'll get in touch with you guys to give you your supplement.
Perfect. That's a great giveaway. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's what I have today. I love all the questions. Thank you, guys.
We did. We had some great questions. Thank you. We appreciate it. Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more, if they want to talk to you about nutrition? What's the best way?
Sure. So you can go on my website, acupetvet.net. You can, there's a contact form there. You can call us at 603-833-2313. Or if you just want to send an email, info@acupetvet.net. I do nutrition consults. Potentially, depending on what's going on, we might even be able to do a telemedicine nutritional consult. So don't hesitate. If you have more questions and you want me to specifically look at the food that your pet's on, and you want me to take a look at the medical history and see if there's anything else that we can do to help supplement your pet, to help out with whatever issues going on, we can definitely do that. I would love to do that. That's my, it's a fun topic for me.
Wonderful. And I know too that you have a special offer for Dog Walking Club members this month. And I wanted you to have a chance to just tell us a little bit about what that offer is.
Absolutely. And if you're not part of the Walking Club yet, definitely become part of it, because the expert sections are great. There's a lot of great information on her Facebook page. And of course, you will get this bundle package for laser and acupuncture for $50 off. So I do acupuncture and rehab therapy to help out with pain control in animals. And basically, it can be from puppies as preventative to middle age to seniors. And it's a $150 bundle, and includes nutrition and supplement consultation, as well as a treatment and going over your medical records with you. And it's $50 off. So you can do the bundle for $100.
Excellent. Thank you. And I know you've already had people take advantage of that. So I'm glad it seems like a very awesome package of goodness. We appreciate it. And so there's one last question we have here from Jessica. She says, how long do you recommend puppies to be on a puppy formula dog food? That's actually a great question.
That is a great question. So it depends on the breed of food, the breed of dog. If you have a large breed like a Great Dane, you want them to be almost fully developed before you switch them off. So generally that's like 14 months to 16 months. If you have a regular sized dog, you're looking at about a year.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Dr. Wilson, for your time and your knowledge. We really appreciate it. And thank you everybody for all the wonderful questions. We had so many today. I love it at the Puppy Lunch and Learns because people really tune in and send us all kinds of good questions. So hopefully you get to join us on the live broadcast. If not, feel free to leave any questions that you have on the replay in the Dog Walking Club event feed, and Dr. Wilson will follow up with you with those answers. So thank you, Dr. Wilson, for your time. Again, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I look forward to celebrating with you on June 24th, next Wednesday at 7 o'clock for our Dog Walking Club Pawty, Pawty. And we will also be joined by Mary's Dogs, who will be talking about their great organization, and we will be raising some funds for them on that night as well. So Have a great week, and I'll see you then.
Bye, guys.
Bye.